Imagine you spent your whole life working from dawn to dusk, building a business from nothing, and now you sit in a courtroom, watching your only grandson stand before a judge, as if the whole city belongs to him. Providence Municipal Court that morning felt like any other weekday. Old wooden benches, coats draped over tired shoulders, people clutching envelopes, traffic tickets folded and refolded. Someone cleared his throat. Someone else whispered a quick prayer under her breath. The clerk called out, "Case 4129, Jason Miller?" Heads lifted. A skinny 19-year-old pushed himself off the bench with the lazy ease of someone leaving a movie, not facing a judge. Oversized designer hoodie, sneakers that looked like they cost a month's rent, keys to a BMW M4 spinning around his finger, phone in his other hand, screen lighting his face. He walked up without hurry, gum in his mouth, that little half smirk of a boy who has never had to wait his turn. While everyone else stared straight ahead, he glanced at the cameras in the back like they were there for him. Judge Caprio looked down at the complaint. "You're charged with speeding in a school zone," he said. 52 miles per hour where the limit is 20. How do you plead? Jason shifted his weight, one shoulder up, still chewing. "Honestly, Your Honor," he said, almost amused, "I don't think this is that serious. Nobody got hurt." On the benches, a woman in a cafeteria uniform let out a quiet hiss of air. A man in work boots shook his head. They'd taken off from jobs that didn't offer sick days. He spoke as if this were a minor inconvenience between brunch and the gym. The judge turned a page. "You have 3 unpaid tickets in the last 6 months," he noted. "You've never appeared in court before. Why today?" Jason's smile widened. "My grandfather's assistant usually handles small stuff," he said. "She told me this one I'd better show up for optics." The word hung there. A few older faces tightened. For them, a ticket was about a paycheck. For him, it was about how things looked. "Optics," the judge repeated. "Is that so?" Jason gave a little shrug. "Yeah, you know. My grandfather likes everything to look proper in the press." A murmur moved through the room. "Who is your grandfather?" the judge asked. Jason answered as if that should settle everything. "Richard Miller, Miller Holdings, Miller Foundation. He kinda owns half this town." Someone behind him whispered, "That's the one who built the new hospital wing." Another leaned forward, suddenly paying closer attention. "So your grandfather built things here?" Judge Caprio said. "And you think that means the rules are optional for you?" Jason's eyes flicked up, steady, almost playful. "I think it means people usually understand who they're dealing with," he replied. The judge held up the citation. "Mr. Miller, in this courtroom, you are one line on this paper," he said slowly. "Name, age, speed, location. Your grandfather is not on this ticket. Only you are." Jason's jaw tightened for the first time. "With all due respect, Your Honor," he shot back, "he's the reason this building even exists. The plaque outside? His name." The judge didn't look away. "And maybe," he said, "that is exactly why I expect more from you, not less." He let the words settle, then added, almost gently, "The problem isn't that you broke the rules. The problem is that you honestly don't understand why that's a problem at all." He set the file down and folded his hands. "Tell me about your family, Mr. Miller," he said. "Who raised you?" Jason blinked, as if the question were off script. "I live mostly by myself," he said. "Penthouse downtown. Grandpa signed it over when I turned 18. "A penthouse," Judge Caprio repeated. "Who else is at home with you?" "No one regularly," Jason answered. "Sometimes friends crash. Housekeeper comes in the mornings." "And your parents?" the judge asked. A small pause. The first real one. "My dad's in Florida," Jason said. "New wife, new kids. We talk on holidays, I guess. Mom travels, conferences, Europe, Asia. She sends pictures from airports more than anything else. He gave a quick, practiced shrug, like a boy explaining the weather. Who saw you every day? The judge pressed. Who told you no? Jason let out a short breath through his nose. Grandpa was around when he wasn't in meetings, he said. He always said, "You'll never have to fight the way I did." So he made sure I didn't have to. How did he fight? The judge asked. Before Miller Holdings and foundations and plaques? Jason's jaw shifted. He tells that story nonstop, he answered. Started loading cargo at the docks when he was a kid, then some tiny warehouse, then trucks. I've heard it so many times I could recite it in my sleep. But you never did that work, the judge said. Jason cracked half a laugh. I'm focusing on my startup, he said. We're building an app. We're in beta. You know how it is? In the back, an older man in a union jacket raised his eyebrows. A woman with a grocery store badge pressed her lips together, amused and tired at the same time. The judge tapped the file with one finger. Is this app what required you to drive 52 miles an hour past a school at dismissal time? He asked mildly. Color rose in Jason's cheeks. That day had nothing to do with the app, he muttered. It was just traffic, timing, whatever. The judge flipped to another page. Your violations begin shortly after your 18th birthday, he observed. New apartment, new car, and very quickly, a string of citations. Something shifted. Jason's posture stiffened. Look, he said, when you grow up hearing how your family built half the skyline, funded scholarships, fixed roads, you start to feel like the city is sort of your project too. Like you and it are on the same team. He scanned the benches behind him, seeing faces but not really looking at them. I mean, he added, voice a little sharper, without my grandfather's donations, half the people in here wouldn't even have a hospital to go to. That sentence landed like a dropped tool on concrete. No shouting, no groans, just a sudden, heavy stillness. A man with a veteran's cap stared at Jason as if remeasuring him. A grandmother in a floral dress lowered her eyes to her folded hands, as if embarrassed for him. Judge Caprio did not immediately respond. When he did, his tone had cooled. You know, Mr. Miller, he said slowly, the most dangerous people are not the ones who have money. He leaned forward slightly. The most dangerous are the ones who believe that because of that money, somebody, somewhere, owes them everything. He closed the folder partway. Now, he said, we're going to stop talking in generalities and look at what you actually did, one incident at a time. The judge slid a new sheet to the top of the file, the paper making a small, sharp sound in the quiet room. Mr. Miller, he said, you mentioned your grandfather's assistant takes care of small stuff. He turned the page so the bench could see it clearly. Did she take care of these as well? On the list were not one, but several violations. 3 speeding tickets, 2 citations for parking in spaces marked for people with disabilities, another for blocking a fire hydrant. Jason shifted his feet. The lazy confidence he'd worn like a jacket didn't fit quite as well. Is that your car? The judge asked, nodding to a photograph clipped to the back. The clerk placed it on the monitor. The same BMW angled in a blue-painted spot, a wheelchair symbol under the tires. Hanging from the mirror was a laminated tag, Disabled Veteran. Jason's fingers tightened around his keys. That's my grandfather's placard, he said quickly. We just leave it there. Makes things easier. Was your grandfather with you on those days? The judge asked. The question hung between them. Jason opened his mouth, closed it, then tried to land somewhere in the middle. Not exactly, he said, but it's still his car, kind of. He paid for it. The plate's in the family name. On the second row, An older man in a faded navy cap sat very still, his jaw working. His leg bounced once, then stopped. He stared at the screen as if the image were an insult addressed personally to him. "So," Judge Caprio said, "you used a disabled veteran placard to get a closer space, while the person who earned it, perhaps by leaving pieces of himself in another country, was at home." Jason's reply was automatic. "It's just parking," he said. "I wasn't hurting anybody." A murmur went through the seats, heavier than before. The veteran in the cap folded his hands over his cane, eyes fixed on the young man who had just announced that borrowing someone else's sacrifice was just parking. "Nothing is just anything," the judge said quietly, "when it involves taking a place that doesn't belong to you." He reached for another document. "I also received a letter," he continued. "No name on it. From someone who lives near your building." He unfolded it and read, not dramatically, just clearly. He leaves his car across the driveway. He parks on the curb, on the crosswalk, wherever he wants. One day a woman with a walker asked him to move. He laughed and told her, "Call whoever you want. My grandfather pays your pensions." We know who his grandfather is. No one wants to make trouble. Jason's head snapped up. "That's blown out of proportion," he protested. "People twist everything because of the name. They like a story." The judge lowered the paper. "Stories don't invent sentences out of thin air," he said. "Those are words someone heard come out of your mouth." The room had no patience left for his protests. You could feel it. A few older faces had gone hard. Others looked strangely sad. The judge folded his hands again. "Here is where you stand, Mr. Miller," he said. "You can keep hiding behind that last name and the money that trails behind it. Or you can, for the first time in your life, stand here as yourself, not as the grandson of, not as a donor's heir, but as a young man who either learns something or doesn't." He paused. "Because in this room, people aren't measuring how big your grandfather's donations were. They're asking one simple question. Are you ready to act like a man? Or are you still a boy, borrowing someone else's power?" For a moment, Jason didn't answer. The judge's last question still hung in the air, and even he seemed unsure what to do with it. Judge Caprio broke the silence by drawing another folder toward him, this one thicker, held together with a metal clip. "There is something else," he said. His tone shifted. Less conversational now, more deliberate. "This speeding ticket is not floating by itself in the universe." He opened the file. "In the last 18 months," he read, "there are 4 additional citations attached to your license. 2 for driving well over the limit, 1 for running a red light, another for stopping across a handicapped ramp by a clinic entrance." He looked up. "None of those ever resulted in you sitting where you are now. They simply went away." Jason's shoulders straightened, as if bracing for a familiar pattern to kick in. "My grandfather has good attorneys," he said. "People know who he is. They're reasonable." The judge turned a page and spoke as if he were reading a weather report. "Each case notes the same contact, counsel retained by your grandfather. Each time a request is made to give a break to a young man who just made a mistake. Each time the record shows a dismissal." He let that sink in. "Has anyone ever required you to carry the weight of your own actions?" he asked. "Without a phone call? Without a favor? Without a checkbook?" Jason's mouth curled at the corner. "When your family's been investing here for 30 years, he said, people are willing to help. That's just how it works." "No," the judge replied. "That is how privilege works. You've lived in it so long, you no longer recognize it as anything unusual." He tapped the last citation. "On this most recent occasion, you didn't just park poorly," he went on. "You stopped your car across the sloped curb designed for wheelchairs. While you were inside, A woman in a chair arrived for an appointment. Staff had to bring her around through the loading dock. He glanced at the report. When the officer asked you to move, you told him. He checked the line. She can go around, it's not the end of the world. The words sounded smaller in the courtroom than they had in the parking lot. That wasn't malice, the judge said quietly. It was something worse. Complete indifference. Jason looked down, then quickly away, as if trying to outrun his own memory. Does your grandfather know you're here today? The judge asked. Of course, Jason replied, confidence returning to his voice. He won't let this get out of hand. Almost on cue, Jason's phone vibrated on the defense table. The sound was loud in the stillness. Go ahead, the judge said. Look at it. Maybe the cavalry has arrived. Jason flicked his eyes to the screen. The color in his face changed as he read the message once, then again. On the glass, in plain text from Grandpa R. Do not expect me to fix this. It's time you face something on your own. The keys in his hand went still. Whatever shield he'd been counting on had just turned, in an instant, into a mirror. Judge Caprio closed the message log and set Jason's phone back on the table, screen down. This stopped being about a fine some time ago, he said. We're talking about habits that have been allowed to grow because people thought doing you a favor was easier than telling you the truth. He signaled to the clerk, who placed a thinner stack of papers beside the main file. These aren't tickets, the judge went on. These are complaints. People who had no lawyers, no foundations, just a problem with a car that happened to be yours. Jason watched his own name repeat down the pages, line after line. The judge lifted the first sheet. Gloria Rivera, age 67, he read. She writes, a gray BMW blocked the ramp at the clinic. I couldn't get my walker up the curb. By the time staff helped me around, I'd missed my cardiology appointment. They told me the next opening was in 3 weeks. He looked over the top of the paper. That license number, he said, matches your car. A rustle moved across the benches. This wasn't abstract anymore. It had a name, an age, a missed appointment. At the side of the room, a small woman with silver hair and a knit cardigan rose slowly, using the edge of the bench to steady herself. Your Honor, she said, voice thin but steady. I didn't know he'd be here today. But yes, that was the car. He sat in it with the music loud. Never once looked my way. Jason turned toward her. For the first time since he'd walked in, there was no smirk, no pose. Just a young man seeing the outcome of his convenience standing on aching knees. The judge nodded gently to Mrs. Rivera. Thank you, he said. You may sit. He opened another envelope, this one with a different handwriting. This, he said, arrived from someone you know better than you think. He unfolded the page. I made my first dollars unloading crates on the pier. Every mistake cost me hours, sometimes weeks. The fear of losing work kept me careful. When success finally came, I swore my family wouldn't have to crawl the way I did. But maybe I also spared them the lessons that shaped me. Jason's eyes narrowed, recognizing the cadence before the signature. If my grandson believes money lifts him above the law, then that is my failure. I ask this court, do not soften your hand because of my name. Treat him as you would any boy who thinks the world owes him. Perhaps that will do him more good than any check I've ever written. Signed, Richard Miller. Jason's lips parted. He never said that to me, he murmured. Sometimes, the judge replied. Older men admit things on paper they don't know how to put in a kitchen conversation. He set the letter aside and picked up a printed image. There is one more piece, he said. A short clip pulled from social media. He described it as the monitor flickered to life. Jason leaning against his BMW, parked directly over a crosswalk. Friends clustered around, laughing. A voice, unmistakably his, floated from the speakers. "Relax. The cops won't touch us. My granddad fixes everything." The clip ended. No one spoke. The judge folded his hands. "You call these youthful mistakes," he said quietly. "But when you repeat the same choice, it stops being a stumble. It becomes your way of walking." He let that image sit there. "The question now is not whether you did these things. We know you did. The question is whether you're willing to walk a different way when there is no one left to clear the path for you." Jason stood there, as if the floor had shifted a few inches, and he was still trying to find his balance. Judge Caprio watched him for a long moment. "Mr. Miller," he said, "let me ask you something not as a jurist to a defendant, but as one grandfather might speak to another man's grandson." The room leaned in without moving. "If tomorrow you woke up without that last name, without the car, without the penthouse, who would you be then?" Jason opened his mouth, then stopped. When the words came, they were rough, stripped of polish. "I don't know," he admitted. "In school, I was Miller. In college, I was the guy who could pay for everything. Take that away, and I have no idea what's left." For the first time, there was no swagger in his voice, only an unfamiliar kind of honesty. The judge nodded slowly. "That," he said, "is a frightening thing to discover at 19, but it's better than discovering it at 69, after you've wasted a lifetime." He drew a clean sheet toward him. "The law gives me options," he went on. "I could impose the maximum monetary penalty, add it to your record, and send you back to your view of the skyline. You'd complain, your family would grumble, and by next week, you'd barely remember why you were standing here." He set the pen down. "Or," he continued, "we choose something that might actually change you." Jason lifted his head. "What does that mean?" he asked quietly. "It means this," the judge said. 40 hours of service at a rehabilitation center where men and women are learning to walk again after wrecks on these same roads. You will help them, see their effort, listen to their stories, and in addition, you will visit 3 schools and tell students exactly why racing through a school zone with both hands on your phone is not clever. It's cowardly. A ripple passed through the courtroom, approval, surprise, a few skeptical snorts. "And when you're done," the judge added, "you will bring me a written account, not about business plans or apps, about what you learned about yourself when nobody cared what your grandfather's portfolio looks like." Jason swallowed. "And if I say no?" he asked. "Then we go back to fines and formalities," the judge replied. "You pay your way out one more time and keep pretending nothing touches you." Jason looked at his hands, at the phone with his grandfather's message still locked inside, at Mrs. Rivera's folded cardigan on the bench. "I'll do it," he said. "The hours, the talks, the report, not because it's cheaper, because I need to see if there's anything in me besides his name." The judge studied him, measuring the difference in that last sentence. "There is one more thing," he said. "Before you came in, your grandfather called this court. He did not ask for favors." He glanced at the clerk's note. He said, "If my grandson finally chooses responsibility over my money, don't stand in his way. If he doesn't, then let him feel the full weight of what he's done. He's a man now." Jason's eyes burned. "So he's not abandoning me," he said slowly. "He's just done hiding me." "That," the judge answered, "is what love looks like when it grows up." He signed the order. "Jason Miller," he said, "this court assigns you 40 hours at the rehabilitation center, 3 school presentations under supervision, and a reflection you will hand to me yourself. When I read it, I don't want to meet the heir to Miller Holdings. I want to meet the person you finally decided to be." Jason nodded. "I'll be back," he said. I want you to be able to look at me and see more than a last name." The judge allowed himself a small, tired smile. "I've watched tougher men than you change," he said. "The only question is whether you're doing this for another video clip or because you're tired of the boy in the mirror." Jason exhaled. "This time," he said, "it's for me." The case moved on. The clerk called another number, but something invisible had shifted. They hadn't taken his freedom, or his inheritance, or the letters on the hospital wing. They had taken something else, the comfortable lie that he could live forever inside someone else's shadow. And for the first time in his young life, that loss might just be the beginning of everything worth having.